How do? I'm Chris, welcome to King Bespoke Creations and welcome to Venomous. What do you think? If you haven't seen the cool edited video of this, I'll put a link in the description of it. It's what we're going to work through today as well, but we're going to have the tech talk over the top of it, looking at all the different parts of this guitar, some of the techniques that we use, some of the tools that we used. There's been a few questions asked about what did I do there and how did I do this bit, so I thought I'd answer all of those as much as I can. So, without further ado, roll VT. Now, firstly, this is basswood, a very common guitar building wood. It's also a carver's dream. Now, this needed leveling up, so I used a scrub plane. Now, I did a little poll on Instagram, and not many of you actually have used a scrub plane before. May I advise having a go? I literally just made my own by putting a curve on an old knackered blade, and it works so well at leveling off very quickly. Then just grabbing a number 4 Stanley, smoothing it all off to make it really clean and crisp. After that, I like to stick the design I've done on the large sheets of paper, just that reel you get from IKEA kind of stuff, and I stick it down onto the body. Now, I've had comments before that it seems bizarre that I would stick the one and only design I have onto the body that's then going to get chopped up. But hey, this is a custom one-off piece, as all of my guitars are. So if I need to make another one, I'll just design another one anyway. Yes, I used some power tools on this build. I know some of you were a bit shocked by that. I do have some. This tiny little hobbycraft bandsaw kind of thing just about cuts through this thickness of this soft wood, so I wouldn't be able to use that bandsaw on something like mahogany, I'm sure, but it works well enough here. Let me know if you think the editing of this video was any good. It's my first attempt at trying to do something a little bit different. Here we are just marking off the depth of the body, so that thinner section is where all the carving is going to come from. And then laying out the neck. If you haven't seen the neck build, check out the videos in the description, just to make sure everything's lined up straight. And as the caption says, no neck jig. I don't have jigs for much of my stuff, so it tends to be that everything is purpose made fit one for the other. And once that's in place, we can then mark off where the bridge and all the coils go. Now, the angle of that first single coil, I had to hunt out for this. Apparently it's between 10 and 11 degrees if you're interested. So this is where this drawing starts getting destroyed straight away. Marking off with the knife, just putting a scribe line into the wood so that when we peel the paper away, I can still see exactly where we're going to, and it's going to give me a nice crisp clean line when we start carving as well. And you'll see later on in the video where I changed my mind on the design a little bit here and extended the tongue so that it licks around that very top volume pot. So marking off where the tone pots need to go, again just using the brad also actually makes an imprint into the wood, and then doing the same around the bridge sections and the coils that we've laid out very specifically as well, so when the paper's removed I know exactly where they're going to fit and everything's going to be really precise. Right, so the rest of the body that's not Venom is then going to be down to a standard body depth of about 40 mil, something like that. I'm going to use a router for that to make sure that it's really nice and flat and looks like a guitar body, and then all the rest of the carving flows into that area. So this is why we marked off all that area at the beginning, so that we can go fresh in with the router. And this is a magical router, you don't even need to turn it on, look. And everything comes out perfect underneath. What a beautiful artistic shot that is, look. Yeah, and because of no jig, I didn't go right up to the edge with the router. It's just using a flat surface and a chisel to really pare down and get to the correct depth all the way through with those. So here's an interesting point where we're going to mark off and drill the holes for all of those tone pots, and we're drilling right the way through out the back. Because there's no scratch plate on the front here, there's going to be a back cavity, so those holes going all the way through show me exactly where that cavity is going to need to be. Then it's just getting rid of all that excess wood that isn't going to be carved, that's going to go down to the body depth. We'll notice as we go through with the router here, I don't go right up to the edge so that the router's got something to lean on both sides. If I've got it all over, the router would easily fall over and slip. You can see on the left hand side there it's basically done a trench. And then we just get rid of that with the chisel at the end, flattening off, easy peasy. If there's any questions you have, please leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them as best I can. If I haven't got into detail of an area that you're really interested in, just leave a comment. I'll try my best, answer everything we can. If there's enough about one particular area, then I'll go back and do another video on that. Oh, and these are my favourite tools. Of all my favourite tools, the carving chisels come out. These are kept pristinely sharp. These very rarely need to go back to any kind of sharpening stone. So all I do is regularly use the Dremel attachment with a bit of a polishing compound on there, some auto sol, just to get it to a really clean shine on both sides. And then you barely need any effort at all, and it glides through the wood. It's absolutely a joy to use. Okay, here we go. This is the good stuff. Yeah, grab that mallet and give it a whack. The mallet's really useful for taking off the big chunks, but it also comes in handy later on with some of the really fine detailed work. Where pushing the chisel, you might run the risk of it just slipping. That mallet actually stops that from happening, gives us a bit more precision. And again, running around sections with the knife to make an imprint onto the wood from that initial drawing. And then we just scribe down to there. Once you've chiseled it away, you can always go back with a pencil and draw back on again. You can just about see that faint line where we've done that. So here's an area where we do just push the chisel through the wood. This basswood, also known as lime wood in Britain and lots of areas of Europe, often referred to as lime wood. If you're going to look for some of this stuff, basswood is the kind of American name and then the general terminology used in the guitar building world. But an absolute carver's dream. It's beautiful stuff to work with. If you want to try carving for the first time, get your hands on some lime wood. Just taking down the back of the bridge area here. I'll tell you what, that's a good looking mug in the background there. I'll put a link in the description to grab some merch. It's 10% off right the way through October, November and December with the Christmas code Christ10. I'll leave all of that in the description. Go and grab yourself something lovely. So here's a lovely tool. We've got a curved gouge there. Often used just by hand. I wouldn't generally tap that at all. Yeah, we made sure at the back of the bridge that you can actually get to those adjustment screws for intonation. Something I didn't think about with the original plan, but it crops up when you start doing it in real life. The V carving chisel, great for doing an outline. And then this double bevel chisel. Yeah, oh man alive, I come to this so often. This is the sharpest thing just known to man, I think. Because of the two bevels on there, it just cuts supremely clean. And then we obviously need to follow everything up with a bucket load of sanding. More detailed stuff here. This is where the Venom's starting to flow into the guitar body as it's trying to take over, and just checking that middle area isn't going to get in the way of strings either. So here's another part of the design that changed as I was building. I was going to put the jack socket on the back of the guitar somewhere, like a Charvel kind of thing. But I just thought, you know what, it would look really cool if Venom himself was trapping that cable in between his tongue and his teeth and holding it in place. I thought that might be a little design feature. And then we set about marking off this mouth. Now this took a long time. There must have been 15 hours just working on the teeth coming through here. It's a long time to get every one of them to look nice and sharp and pointy. And here comes this very satisfying curl. Oh, it's so nice when you get a nice long curl like that. Using the V carving chisels again, and then that double bevel chisel as a combination of cleaning up a set area, and then just wisping through little bits at a time. You can just see it carves through like butter, which is weird because it actually smells like butter as well. When you go sanding this basswood stuff, it smells like someone's cooking butter. It's amazing stuff. So you can see here where all the detail of the teeth coming in, cutting the gums in place, and then cutting the top edge of the teeth so it fits into the gums, and then making sure there's roundy sections. Trying to get those little areas in between the teeth was quite tricky. Again, trying to chop in from both sides, quite often using this double bevel chisel again to chop out the middle areas. I did get a Dremel out at one point with a thin carving section on there just to clean and polish in between the two. You can see how much detail you get. A lot of carving is really just creating shadows. You can see there we've got about 1/2 mil taken off, yet that line is so visible now. An awful lot of the carving really is just about creating shadows, playing with shadows to create an effect. Just getting a knife out occasionally, freestyling it, feeling confident there. It's good when you've got your eye in. Yeah, trimming off, making sure we're getting into the corners. That was some of the tricky stuff, is actually getting some of these really sharp corners was always a difficult part. And then starting on the chin, and then the lower teeth, and then the tongue has to come in. Yeah, there's an awful lot of work. Here's your scale and polish. Grabbing that Dremel for some of those smaller areas, especially where it's deep with a small gap as well, was just really hard to get in there with a chisel, so that's where the Dremel came out. Yeah, I think the tongue's one of my favourite parts of this. It's the bit that my wife looked at and went, "Oh, that's gross," which means I've done it right. So yeah, you can see here where we have extended it right the way up to the top. The original design was a lot shorter than that, but I thought, it needs to go up to the top. Oh, and then we got to the sanding. This just took too long. There's so much area of sanding on there. Again, trying to get into those nooks and crannies, not an easy thing, which is why I bought a pack of emery boards. It worked really, really well. Yes, and gadzooks, another power tool. This finger sander is brilliant. I used to use this an awful lot before I really got into hand tools. It works like a mini chainsaw. It's brilliant. All the chainsaw carving that you see on your Instagrams and what have you, a finger sander like this just works on a mini scale of that. And here's the back of the guitar, where you can see that we had all the holes that we've gone all the way through. So it means I can design that back plate to really fit perfectly, knowing exactly where those areas are going to go. So it's not too big, too small, it's not off center, and exactly where it's going to fit. Everything works out perfectly. Just grab the depth of the plate first. I've done quite a thick plate, again, because wooden plates have a tendency to bend and bow, don't they? So let's just make a thick one. And then we get to painting. Now this, for me, is the scariest part of the entire build. All the colours, except for the red body colour, is just standard water-based paints. So I did all the way around the guitar body with black, sanded it off just to give it a little bit more texture. It shows up some of the grain, not that you tend to get a lot in basswood anyway. And then the thick black, look at that, suddenly just stands out so bold. It's lovely, it's awesome. Watering down the black in areas for the gums again, just to give more texture underneath the colours. If I just went on straight on with the purple, it would look a bit brash and horrible, I think. So we've gone for the purple with the gums. The black underneath just gives it that texture. This looks ridiculously bright when you first put it on, but it does dull off when it dries down, and it gives us that a little bit more. Again, once those paint are done, we needed to re-sand the teeth again to get rid of that excess colour that comes through. So again, more and more sanding, and then painting the teeth. A slightly off-white. Didn't want pristine coloured teeth, because I don't think Venom would have that. And then we work on the red. Now this is a really nice stain stuff that comes through. It's Bolgers, it's called. I'll put a link in the description to grab some. It works really well. Gorgeous colours. Wipe it on with either a brush or a rag. Doesn't really matter. Leave it to dry. And then we can put some coats of lacquer. Now this is a brush on lacquer that I'm using here. I'm not a fan of spray cans. I don't have a spray booth. I'm in a dusty workshop. I don't think spray cans work very well for me. This is a brush on lacquer that only took 2 or 3 coats, and you can see just brushing it all on and then rubbing it down with a rag after it's just started to go off a little bit. Smooths it all out and gives it quite a nice sheen. Brings out that black underneath on the red as well. You've got to be careful with it because it does take a lot of the red off. You can see some of the rags on the left there. It takes a lot of the red off with it, which is nice because it gives us that black underneath. But you've got to be careful then that you're not spreading that red stain onto any other part of the guitar. A little bit of a tricky process going through there. Once the body's done, we can glue the neck in. I never bother screwing necks in. I don't see the point. I think that's just a factory thing because it's easier. So glue the neck in, job done. and then it looks like a guitar. Look at that, gorgeous. Then we can start on the electronics. Now this isn't my forte, it's definitely following a map all the way through for me. Lots of shielding paint all the way through, didn't want the single coils to be buzzing. It comes with a beast mode switch, which I absolutely love. Stick it all in the back cavity and somehow it sorts itself out, which is really clever, isn't it? So yes, this beast mode basically turns some of the single coil positions into humbucker style sound qualities. So we're linking things up, some of them in series, some of them in parallel. Clever little piece of kit. Full sound demo coming soon, so again make sure you click subscribe and catch that, it's coming out soon. If you haven't caught the inlay video for the fretwork, make sure you go and catch that. Some very easy techniques to do some inlays and also easy ways to make a mistake as well. After that, it's just a matter of it making some noise. Oh, and by the way, this guitar's for sale. You definitely want to go and watch this video here if you need to learn how to make a guitar neck. It's absolutely brilliant. Go and check it out. Other than that, go and sharpen your tools and I'll see you soon. God bless.